Welcome to the Leading Hope Podcast with Kevin Jack. Your influence will lead people somewhere, lead them towards hope. Everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count.
Welcome to Leading Hope with Kevin Jack. I'm your host, VJ Williams, here with my friend and pastor, Kevin Jack. Thank you for joining us and taking time out of your day to become a better leader. We release a new episode every Wednesday, so we'd love for you to share on social media and bring others along with us on this journey of becoming a better leader. Visit leadinghope.online to get updates and find out more about the Leading Hope community. If you're new to the podcast or haven't yet subscribed, it would mean the world to us if you did that now. Also, post about it, rate, and review. You will not believe how that helps get this podcast in the hands of so many more leaders like you. And today we are continuing our series on effectiveness, which this has been powerful. I love this. We're in episode 6 today, the effective leader's time. Kevin, you look like you are ready to talk about people's time.
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
I'm ready to talk. You're going to love this. I just want you to know that. Like, you don't know everything that's coming, and you're going to love some of this.
I can't wait.
Hey, so this has been one of my favorite series that we've done. Like, up there is like rhythms at the very beginning is up there.
Yep.
Capacity was one of my favorites.
Yep.
And this is right up there with them because I think it is just so the concepts are simple, but the application of them is so powerful.
Yes.
And so this whole core concept of the idea of saying, hey, your role is to be effective. Effective is determined by results and contributions, not problem solved. Output, not input. Results given, impact made, not hours worked in any way. And so that as a shift to understand, and I'll say even with my own life, and this is going to color some of the timepiece, is to understand that there's some areas that I have to be at 100%. Mm-hmm. And so to go, weekend messages, I have to be at 100%. And it is counterproductive for me to work more hours. Like I could wake up early on a Sunday morning and get other things done. But that would be counterproductive.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter what I get in that time slot. If I'm at 90% instead of 100%, whatever I got done earlier was not worth it.
Right.
And so that is this shift towards understanding results. It's saying, hey, what do I do that matters massively more? How can I focus on that? How can I, as we've already covered, focus on opportunities? How can I leverage my strengths, my team's strengths, my boss's strengths towards those results? And so this episode gets more into the nitty gritty of that. Okay. So these all work together, but then this episode is where you're actually going to start to get more practical and go, oh, this is what that looks like, because we want to talk about your time and how important your time is. There is no resource that is more finite than your time, which means there is no resource that is more valuable than your time. And you may go, no, it's money, it's cash flow, or it's this product. No, it's your time. Like there is nothing that is more finite than your time. And here's my hunch. You don't know where your time goes. You think you know where your time goes, but in that gap between what you think you're doing and where your time is actually being spent is a massive amount of opportunity. So we've talked in this series how a lot of this is based off of Peter Drucker's incredible book, The Effective Executive, who VJ said last episode, called him out if you're listening, not realizing that he died some time ago. So
Had no idea.
that was fun.
It was. No, somewhat. For someone, it was fun.
So one of the projects that Peter Drucker took on is that whenever he would help leaders go through and understand their time, is he would make them do a time audit. And we're going to go through some different pieces on this in just a second to make an accounting for where their time was going. And what he found was this, is that the vast majority of leaders didn't know, were off by 50%. If not more, as to where their time was going. Like even the most like well-planned out leaders were still off by 50% as to where their time was actually going. So there is this massive gap between what I assume, where I intend my time to go, and the actual execution of that. And so you can't know where your time is going without making accounting for where your time actually went. So I want to give you 3 steps today on properly leveraging your time towards results. And so step 1 is to create a time audit. Create a time audit. Not in advance, not from memory, but in real time, going through, this is where my time is going this week. To categorize the different activities, and we're going to get to more of that in just a second, but to be aware, hey, this is where my time is headed. Your goal is to deploy your time to outcomes, not inputs or problem solving. So there's this really helpful podcast that I know you loved, that Craig Rochelle did. And the title of the podcast is The 4 Tiers. I don't understand why you're laughing.
wanted to just say, hey, Craig Rochelle, if you're watching, he's
alive.
He's alive.
He's alive.
Sorry, it was just too easy. Sorry, go ahead.
The Craig Rochelle did titled The 4 Tiers of Effectiveness. We'll have a link to that in our show notes if you want to check that out. But Craig Rochelle went through and he said, hey, there's 4 different tiers. There is 1, what is absolutely mission critical. There is 2, what is very important and strategic. There is 3, what is meaningful but not vital. And there is 4, what is externally initiated and lower priority. Nowhere within those does he say, this doesn't matter at all.
Right.
And that's important to note.
Yeah.
There is absolutely critical, very important, meaningful, but not vital, and then externally initiated. Because if you're good in any way, you're not going to be sucked into things that don't matter at all, but that doesn't mean you're not leveraging your time. So here's my guess, is that as you go through and do a time audit, you're going to be shocked as to where your time is actually headed. That you're going to think, oh, I spent so much time on this, and you're going to realize, oh my goodness, this is eating up massive chunks of my time. So step 1 on this is to do a time audit. Figure out where your time is actually headed. Step 2 is to actively eliminate time wasters. Do everything you can to eliminate things that are wasting your time. And so I kind of chunk these into different categories. You need to, 1, eliminate what doesn't need to be done. There may be some things that you go, we don't need to figure out how to do this better, how to do this faster. We just need to stop doing this. This doesn't matter. Not every email needs a response. Not even every email needs to be read. Just because someone put it on your plate doesn't mean you have to eat it, okay? So actively eliminate what doesn't need to be done. 2, delegate what doesn't need to be in your hands. In an awareness of the strengths of those around you, delegate the things that you don't need to be doing. And then the third thing is to systematize, oh, I crushed that word, systematize inefficiencies. Areas in which things could have an automatic response, areas in which things have way too many steps that needs to be done. You need to create systems for those inefficiencies, create just predictable patterns of how they get done to reduce the time. And so in that second step, once you're aware of where your time is going, you are actively eliminating time wasters. The goal on this is a well-managed organization. And a well-managed organization is boring because it's predictable. Mm. And I know that runs counter to so much of what we do. I'm not saying your meetings should be boring. I'm not saying your vision should be boring. Goodness gracious, don't let your vision be boring. But the way in which you do things should be so predictable that it doesn't create excitement because you guys already know the pattern. So create a time audit. Actively eliminate time wasters. And then here is the third one that is like, obviously the goal of all this is to go, you leverage your time towards opportunities. Mm-hmm. You leverage your strengths towards opportunities. But the way in which you do that is this third step. And that is you need to chunk your time. You need to chunk your time. And so you cannot contribute great outcomes in small chunks of time. You cannot contribute great outcomes in small chunks of time. 5 minutes of thinking accomplishes nothing. Like you're not going to come to any great insights in 5 minutes of thinking. I disagree with this a little bit, but I do want to reference it for a contrasting opinion. Drucker talks about one-on-one meetings in his books, and he says 15 minutes with an employee is worthless. He says, really? Oh, that's his thing. He goes, I need 60 minutes to actually move towards something.
Wow, that's awesome.
As for our team, we operate that differently. So we kind of take what he says and we go, now we have like 20, 30 minutes, weekly check-ins. But the weekly check-in, the goal is not a deep soul searching. The goal is just oversight and alignment on time and objectives. So I think our purposes are a little bit different there. But I do think that's important to note that he goes, I need massive amounts of time on things in order to actually get something moving. So here's how I've done that. And Carrie Newhoff has some resources. There's a lot of people. If you just do a Google search, you'll find a ton of resources on this. Is I create an ideal week, and I already have my time blocked out in advance. And so this is what I know. Like, I know every Tuesday is message writing day. Nothing gets scheduled on Tuesday. I don't take any meetings on a Tuesday because I know I need to write a message out for 6 weeks. My meeting days are Monday and Thursday. And I'll schedule as many meetings as I ever need to on Monday and Thursday, but I'm not letting it drift into because Tuesday's message writing day. Wednesday for me is more big projects. Right now, my big project is I and a small team are in the process of rewriting our forward curriculum. And so that for me, that is all day Wednesday. That's the entire day. And we had this realization that if we say, hey, let's give an hour to this every week, it'll take us a year. It'll take us a whole year to rewrite this. But if we say, hey, if we take a whole day a week, we would have loved to just take a week off and do it. But the problem is we have services every weekend, which makes that not possible for us. But we go, hey, if we take a day, we can get this done in a month. A day a week, we can get this done in a month. So I just want to say this to say, your goal is to chunk your time. I know for myself, the phrase I've had, and I think we referenced this in another podcast, is I am best at creating in the mornings and doing administration and other pieces in the afternoon. The phrase I use is maker in the morning, manager in the afternoons. I'm a maker in the morning, a manager in the afternoons. And that allows me to chunk my time knowing what is the best time of the day for me to leverage my strengths and where things are naturally going to fall. So to see that, so 3 steps: time audit, eliminate time wasters through the processes that we talked about, and then chunk your time with an awareness of strengths and opportunities. Your greatest resource is your time. Your time must be deployed to your greatest outcomes, and you can't deploy your time until you know where your time goes.
Man, again, a ton here. We'll make a point to put it on leadinghope.online to get some of these resources in your hands so that they have some of that content, because there is so much here that we could, again, talk for days about. One thing I wanted to ask you, and I could go, again, I got so many things here. One thing I wanted to ask you about, we talk about time and money, neither are infinite. But however, we generally budget money, but not time. Why do you think that is?
Greed?
I
mean, just off the cuff, I would say greed, and also I know this is crazy in our increasingly narcissistic culture, but a lack of understanding on our own individual importance.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds crazy, but
I
go,
that's
your time matters.
Yeah.
What kills me?
Where you're giving it matters too. I mean, to whom? This
is going to sound really bad. Okay. And I apologize because
I can't wait.
And there's some people, you maybe listen to this. I don't have time to just connect.
Okay.
There's a couple friends that I have that I go like that. We have our relationship is friendship.
Yeah.
And so they go, hey, let's connect. Like, yeah, let's do that. But I don't have time to just connect with people who aren't already friends.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times I'll get calls from other pastors or stuff like that and say, hey, could I have 20 minutes of your time? Hey, could I have 30 minutes?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sure. I want to try to make myself available when I can. And sometimes I'll get on those calls and I'll go, hey, what can I help you with? And they'll go, yeah, I just wanted to connect. Yeah. Like, I don't have time to just connect. Like, if you have questions, you have things like that I can make an impact on. I will absolutely do that if I can.
Yeah, you're all in on that.
All in. I don't have time to just shoot the breeze with someone who I don't really know already.
That's important to note. the other thing is
that felt bad. Did that sound bad?
No, not at all.
Thanks.
No, it makes sense.
You would have affirmed me no matter what.
It's going to go back to, no, I would have, if you would have said it differently, I would have, but I understand what you're saying. And I'll talk about that in Grochelle's number 1, which is absolutely mission critical in just a second. But going back to you, since it's the Kevin Jack.
Oh my gosh, stop.
No, this is good. This is good. You're super protective over Tuesdays.
Oh yeah.
Tell us why that is, because I think anyone listening needs to understand why. Now, there's other times that you you need to also be protective over, not as much as Tuesday. That whole day, unless it's the world's blowing up type of thing, you're super protective. Talk about why.
Yeah.
Why that is.
There was a time in my life in which I defined success by the quantity of things that I produced.
Yeah.
And I have come to and let's just be clear, I still produce a high quantity of stuff.
Sure.
Like it's just in my nature. But to understand that the quality of what I'm producing now matters that much more.
Yeah.
And so Tuesday for me, if I don't get Tuesday right on writing the message, it really doesn't matter what comes after that. It's not going to be good.
Yeah.
Like Tuesday is, talk spiritual in a sense, like Tuesday is my time that I have set aside that I expect to hear from God.
Yeah.
And I don't say audible voice. That's a whole nother discussion. That's probably not for this podcast in that. But like Tuesday is my time to go, I need to get the right word from God that he wants me to deliver.
Yeah.
And if I don't do that, nothing else I do matters.
Right.
And so that's where I have to go. The best way, and it's not a sense of self-importance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not because this is what's best for me. It is go, if I'm not doing that, like my role as a leader is to serve the people best. That is my job.
Yeah.
I can't serve the people best out of my weaknesses. I can only serve them best out of my strengths. And if I'm not doing that, I am not serving the people best. And so the best thing that I can do for you is to not meet with you ever
Right.
on a Tuesday.
Right.
Or even to clarify that this is where my time needs to go is the best thing I can do for you. And that's hard for some people to go like, hey, the best thing I can do for you is to not meet with you.
Yeah.
But it's not a sense of self-importance. It's a sense of serving the people who you're leading.
Yeah. And it goes back to our episode last week too. If I am working under the leader who is using that day, I know that, and I am helping him with his strengths by not scheduling meetings and things on Tuesdays, because you're able to, if you screw up Tuesday, like the rest of the week, like it's not going to be good. Nothing from that is going to be fruitful, to use that term, right? Because everything else will be leading back to the Tuesday in which you weren't doing what you were supposed to.
Yeah.
And that's such an important part of your mission critical, which is going back to what I was saying. So Groeschel will say, and I love this part, he's gotten to the point now, he's been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
And they've done some incredible things.
You love that podcast.
I love the podcast, but I love his perspective of where he's at in his journey.
Okay.
And this will be interesting to see what happens over the years with you at Be Hope and wherever God takes you from here, because this is similar things. He's almost to the point now where he says, the only thing that's mission critical for me, the number one thing for him, is to make sure that I'm leading people.
Yeah.
End of story. Not even writing messages, which he speaks, 40 times a year probably, right? But he says he's almost given that away now, where they're writing messages, or he doesn't even have to be the speaker. Now, we're not there. Mm-hmm. You are the number one speaker at our church, the number one pastor at our church. That's not
the primary speaker.
Yeah, primary. But at the end of the day, he's gotten to the point where that's not even a mission critical thing for him. Talk about that, because that is very, very, that gap of time that he is specifically, uniquely putting in his calendar is number one, lead people.
Yeah. So I think as people go through this process, what they will be shocked by is they want there to be a lot of things in that first category.
Yeah.
And there's not.
No.
There's almost nothing.
Right.
And even in the second category, there's almost nothing. And so to realize that, like, hey, if I'm going to contribute results, there's only a couple things that I have to crush it on.
Yep.
And I don't mean that as like, oh, I've only got to put in 10 hours a week. Those things should eat up an enormous amount of time.
Absolutely.
And we give, this is what I think some people will be fined. We'll find, and it'll be a little devastating, but you're resilient, okay? If you're not resilient, go back and watch our series on resilience before you do this. Is you're going to list out what's absolutely mission critical, and then you're going to do your time audit, and you're going to realize that you spend no time towards that thing. Like that's what you're going to realize. You go,
exactly
this is what I'm here to do, and I actually don't do this at all. And I want that to be a wake-up call and go, oh, I've gotta focus more on this because this is what's best for people and the people that I serve.
Absolutely. And I am guilty. I look at this list of 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I go to that fourth. Externally initiate and lower priority. Oh, someone wants my word.
Yeah.
Someone wants me to help them out. Oh, I'm great.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
like that's
right.
what it comes like. So then it's easy for me to help people in that situation, but it's not mission critical. It might have been meaningful, but it wasn't vital. And it's certainly not very important and strategic, but it's something I can do right now. And I can push all that stuff off into a distance and actually not help me be effectiveness with my time.
So one of the conversations that we've had is to go, like, you are a leader in online church. Like we have churches 10 times our budget calling you to figure out how you're doing what you're doing. And so one of the things that we've had conversations on is like, hey, let's steward our influence well, but let's also steward our time well. And so instead of responding to every call and every email, what if you set up a monthly block of an hour and said, hey, I'm going to have a Zoom call. I'm going to have something like that. Anyone and everyone who wants to be on it, hop on. But I can give an hour to this. I can give an hour to this once a month. I just can't give an hour to this every other day with all these individual people.
Right. And that's something that this is why this podcast is so important. It's something to reflect on and go, what am I doing? What do I need to change with my time to be a more effective leader? And that's such a good thing. Hey, I think we're out of time. Where do you want to leave this episode? We could go for days, folks.
Yeah.
This is so good.
Yeah. Deploy your time to your greatest opportunities, not problems. Once you do a time audit, you have to do a time audit, okay? You have to know where your time is going. You will be shocked at where your time is going. But use that information to make a difference, to make an impact, because the world needs your leadership.
Yes, they do. Thank you so much for joining us today. Episode 64, The Effective Leader's Time. If you're new to the podcast or haven't yet subscribed, it'd mean the world to us if you did that now. Also, post about it, rate, and review, or both. You won't believe how that helps get this podcast in the hands of so many more leaders just like you. And we love hearing your stories of how the podcast is working in your life and in your business. If you have a story, visit leadinghope.online and send that to us. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count.